the US. Taxpayer being given a big hit on the government bailout of General Motors.
Yeah, that's right. The US government has sold its last shares in the car maker, but leaving the public purse out of pocket to the tune of $10 billion. Washington had pumped almost $50 billion into General Motors as part of a general rescue of the US auto industry back in 2009. Became a very thorny political issue as well. During last year's presidential campaign, Mitt Romney had called it crony capitalism, this particular rescue plan. Despite the cost to taxpayers, though, US Treasury Secretary Jack Lew says the rescue was worth it to save millions of American jobs.
OK, so what's happening on the markets today then?
Well, despite record highs on Wall Street yesterday, European markets have opened in the red. New figures here in France showing industrial production down 0.3% after a fall of 0.5% in September. That's driven the CAC Carroll into negative territory. Over in Asia, stocks slipped back in trading too. New figures from China impacting on shares there, industrial production and retail sales in growth, but still disappointing investors. The Shanghai Composite dipping into the red as a result.
And the aerospace giant EADS has announced massive job cuts, hasn't it?
Yeah, 5,800 positions are to go between now and 2016 at the company. Most of these jobs are going in its defence and space divisions, which are going to be restructured. Chief Executive Tom Enders says EADS needs to improve its competitiveness at a time when European governments are cutting their defence budgets. But the French Employment Minister Michel Sapin has been saying this morning the company has a duty to avoid compulsory layoffs at the company. Shares, though, in the company opening up in Paris this morning.
Finally, a lovely story for you now. A group of Irish supermarket workers. They're joining the memorial service, aren't they, for Nelson Mandela? Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, back in 1984, a cashier called Mary Manning was working at a supermarket chain in Ireland called Dunnes Stores. She refused to handle goods that had come from apartheid South Africa. Now, that led to a strike by 11 workers. The company went on for nearly 3 years. They got to meet Nelson Mandela when he was visiting Dublin in 1990. Oliver Farry has more on their story and their return to South Africa.
As young women, they led a 3-year strike in protest against apartheid, and now they visit South Africa to pay homage to the late Nelson Mandela. Mary Manning, then 21, walked out of her checkout job at a Dublin supermarket in 1984 when she refused to handle South African products. She was joined by 11 others in a strike that continued for 3 years and gained international attention. Some of the strikers have made it to South Africa before, but for Manning, it's the first time.
We actually walked through this morning and actually got through. We were all delighted. Like, Karen has been here after the strike, but we haven't been here as a group since.
The strike eventually forced the Irish government to ban South African imports in 1987. When Nelson Mandela visited Dublin in June 1990, he met the women and thanked them for their support. They had also been invited to South Africa by the ANC, but were refused entry by the apartheid regime.
I was with the group that attempted to come in 1985, and as Mary said, we were turned away. But I said I was the last person going up the steps of the plane on the way home, and I turned around and said, we will be back when South Africa is free. And unfortunately, it has taken us Nelson Mandela's passing away to get back here.
The 3 women will attend Nelson Mandela's funeral, and Mary Manning will get the opportunity to visit the street in Johannesburg that bears her name.
Mary Manning and the others as well. What a star. Thanks very much. Thanks, Stephen, as well, for their business. Now it's time for today's international papers. And the international papers, of course, continue to focus on